Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
James Blount, the officer turned hitmaker who refused to fade. James Blount's journey from British Army officer to international pop sensation remains one of the more surprising arcs in modern music. Born James Hillier Blount on February 22, 1974, in Tidworth, England, he grew up in a military family and followed the expected path, the University of Bristol, Sandhurst, and deployment as part of a peacekeeping force during the Kosovo War. Yet even during those years, Blount carried an acoustic guitar like a quiet counter-identity, writing songs in the corners of barracks and bases. By the early 2000s, he decided to step away from military life and pursue music full-time, a move that seemed risky until 2004's Back to Bedlam exploded beyond anything he or the industry predicted. The album's breakout single, "You're Beautiful," became one of the defining songs of the decade, topping charts worldwide and turning Blount into a global household name. While the track eventually took on a kind of cultural meme status, it also showcased his gift for melody, emotional clarity, and conversational storytelling. Blount followed up with a steady run of albums that leaned into his strengths: tender vocals, open-hearted lyricism, and an ear for reflective pop. Records like All the Lost Souls, 2007, Some Kind of Trouble, 2010, and Bonfire Heart, 2013, proved he was more than a one-song phenomenon. He kept refining his sound, shifting between stripped-down acoustic tracks and bright, pop-leaning production, always anchored by that slightly raspy, unmistakable voice. In the 2010s and beyond, Blount settled into a rare balance: enduring musician, touring mainstay, and unlikely social media star. His dry, self-effacing humor on Twitter helped reintroduce him to a new generation, turning him into a beloved internet personality who could poke fun at himself while still selling out shows. Albums like The Afterlove, 2017, Once Upon a Mind, 2019, and Who We Used to Be, 2023, found him embracing maturity without losing the earnestness that defined his early work. Offstage, Blount has long been involved in humanitarian and charitable efforts, drawing on his military background and international experience. He's also built a life far from the noise of celebrity, spending much of his time at his home in Ibiza, where he owns a well-known bar that often becomes an impromptu performance venue. 2 decades after his breakthrough, James Blount stands as a musician who defied the early pigeonholing. Rather than burn out or disappear, he evolved into a respected songwriter, a steady touring presence, and a pop figure entirely comfortable with who he is. His story remains a reminder that sincerity and a wry sense of humor can carry an artist farther than cynics expect, and that sometimes the quiet guitar in the corner is hiding a global hitmaker. A career built on authenticity, not flash. Part of James Blount's longevity comes from how little he's tried to chase trends. In a pop landscape that constantly recalibrates itself around whatever's new, he's carved out a niche anchored in emotional transparency. His songs often read like journal entries, snapshots of love gained, love lost, and the strange in-between places where humans tend to linger. Tracks such as Goodbye My Lover, 1973, and Monsters highlight this emotional range, stretching from youthful heartbreak to solemn reflections on family and mortality. Monsters, released in 2019, stands as one of his most affecting works. Written for his father, who was battling kidney disease, the track struck a chord with listeners who saw a new kind of vulnerability in Blount. It showed how his songwriting had matured beyond romantic narratives into themes of aging, gratitude, and letting go. Touring, connection, and the hidden energy of a James Blount show. For all his gentle ballads, Blount's live shows are surprisingly energetic. He's an enthusiastic performer with a knack for banter, making his concerts feel part intimate storytelling session and part comedy set. Fans often call his on-stage humor one of the best surprises. He has fun with the fact that people love to tease him about "you're beautiful," and he leans into it rather than running from his early success. His tours frequently span Europe, Asia, and the Americas, and his reputation as a sincere, warm performer has kept attendance strong even in markets where tastes have shifted significantly since his early breakthrough. The internet's favorite self-deprecating pop star Blount's second career as a witty social media persona has played no small role in revitalizing public affection for him. His ability to reply to criticism with razor-sharp humor has earned him millions of followers and endless viral moments. He became proof that an artist can outlast the memification of their music simply by being in on the joke. That savvy repositioning also gave him cultural longevity well beyond the typical post-hit fade many early 2000s artists experienced. It's a case study in how authenticity and humor can rebuild a public image more effectively than any PR campaign. Life beyond the spotlight outside music, Blount leads a fairly grounded life. He's married to Sophia Wellesley, granddaughter of the Duke of Wellington, and the couple has 2 children. Despite his aristocratic in-laws, Blount remains refreshingly down to earth, often joking about any assumptions people make about his lifestyle. His Ibiza bar, the Blount Club, has become a quirky calling card. It's part hangout, part mini venue, and partly a reflection of his love for community spaces. Visitors sometimes catch him hosting, performing, or just chatting casually with patrons. He's also active in several charitable causes, supporting veterans organizations, medical research initiatives, environmental efforts, and refugee programs. His past military service has continued to shape how he engages with global issues and humanitarian work. A legacy that keeps growing. James Blount's story isn't just about a massive hit song. It's about reinvention, resilience, and the quiet confidence of an artist who never felt the need to shout to be heard. With more than 20 million albums sold worldwide and a dedicated global fanbase, he's become one of the more understated success stories of his generation. More importantly, he seems to be enjoying this phase of his career more than ever. Comfortable with his image, connected to his fans, and still writing with emotional clarity, Blount has settled into a long, steady arc that many artists envy. Musical style and the craft behind the sentiment. James Blount's songwriting often gets labeled as soft, but there's a lot more sophistication beneath the surface. His melodies lean toward classic British pop, with clean lines that make the emotional content easy to absorb. He gravitates toward piano and acoustic guitar, giving his tracks an intimate, almost confessional texture even when wrapped in larger production. What sets him apart is his phrasing. Blount has a habit of singing slightly ahead of the beat or with a conversational lilt, giving his lyrics a spoken honesty. That quality is especially clear in songs like "Same Mistake" and "Hi," where his delivery feels like someone trying to articulate something deeply personal in real time. It's one of the reasons listeners who connect with his music connect very deeply. Staying relevant in a rapidly changing industry. When Blount debuted, the music landscape was in the middle of a massive shift. Physical sales were collapsing, streaming hadn't yet taken over, and many artists who released hits in the mid-2000s struggled to endure the next decade. Blount adapted by leaning into what made him unique instead of trying to reinvent himself for each trend. He allowed his music to grow more atmospheric, more electronic at times, but he never abandoned the emotional core. Collaborations with artists like Ryan Tedder, Ed Sheeran, and Steve Mac opened him up to a broader pop sound without diluting his voice. The Afterlove tour especially showcased this blend, mixing old-school Blount ballads with a sleeker, more modern aesthetic. The paradox of being a guilty pleasure artist. A fascinating part of James Blount's cultural life is how many people claim not to be fans while secretly knowing the words to half his catalog. His songs entered that space of guilty pleasure, a term that often says more about the listener's self-consciousness than about the music itself. Blount handled that perception with a light touch. Instead of defending his work against critics, he joked about it, which had the unexpected effect of normalizing affection for his music. Over time, that irony loop flipped into genuine appreciation. Today, it's common to see younger listeners discovering his songs with fresh ears, unaffected by the early 2000s discourse that tried to paint sincerity as uncool. Impact across generations. The thing about James Blount is that even if you're not a dedicated fan, his songs tend to soundtrack major life moments. Weddings, breakups, memorials, long drives, quiet nights staring at the ceiling. His music fits those spaces because it's open-hearted without being melodramatic. Goodbye My Lover, in particular, became one of those songs.
Bye bye, thanks for watching, bye.